So we put the lights down. We trust that you will not fall asleep. You had a nice little cup of coffee, I know. So what I'd like to go over with you all now over this next hour is to share some of our methods using visual art. So you guys have looked at poetry before, you've done some reflective writing. So I want to introduce you to some of the methods we've been using with visual art and talk about how you might introduce some of these methods with your own clinics and with your own teams. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to start off by reflecting a little bit on how things are going so far with you. I'd like to hear from you. And then we're going to view a painting together and talk about it. And then we're going to write to a prompt. So I know you guys have the notebooks with you. We'll do a brief writing to a prompt, and then we'll come back and reflect on the methods we used. First, I just want to, get a sense of who is in the room. This is going to help me a lot. Nurses in the room? Okay, good. How about physicians? A lot. Social workers? Psychologists? Occupational therapy? Physical therapy? Radiology technicians? Things like that. How about people that are scholars in the humanities? Writers? Artists? Okay, beautiful. How about students? Medical students, residents? And how about administrators? People who have a role in okay. Those are the people you need to get to know. Raise your hands up. People with the influence. What I love about this room is the fact that it is so many different fields, and we all have a role in determining how we organize our healthcare system. Did I not mention anybody? Any roles that we didn't mention yet? Yes?
Priests.
Excellent, beautiful, thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, great, so that's very helpful to me to know who's in the room. So what I'd like you to do now is talk to someone next to you, preferably someone you don't know. And just for 5 minutes, I'd like you to explore with them what brought them here. Why did they come to this conference? Okay, so let's come back as a big group. I would love to hear from you all about a couple people just sharing something that they heard from their neighbor. You can volunteer your neighbor. That's part of the rules. Or you can tell me what brought you here. I'd love to hear from a couple of you. So let's fill the space with intentions. So raise your hand and tell me what might have inspired you to come to this workshop this weekend. Yes?
I heard it was really good last year.
Ah.
Know some more about
The last thing, you wanted to learn about narrative medicine. Okay.
a little bit more about what it is, because I think it's hard to really know.
Yes, I like that. So the word of mouth got out. Valdemar, you've been doing a great job with your PR, your marketing. It's working. Yes.
I wanted to participate because I recognize what you say that during the medical studies it's not very prominent, the importance of the narrative part and the main part of medical, the job as a medical doctor. So I think it's important to integrate it into the work as much as possible.
Yes. So really from your own personal experience, you wanted to learn about this to integrate it into your own practice. Thank you very much. But a couple more people, yes.
My neighbor, she is a psychiatrist.
And again, you're allowed to nominate your neighbor. Yeah.
She told me just now that the narrative is what I do. I listen.
Yes.
Listen.
Yep.
I'm here to see what can I do more.
Excellent. I love it. And isn't that the nature of, gaining mastery of any craft, any field that you're in? There's always more. Your work is narrative to listen, but what else can I do to get even better? Thank you for that. Yes?
The political current opinions is that artificial intelligence that will solve every problems. And we have to start a counter discussion
Yeah.
and make it so wide as possible.
Yes.
So we have to get good PR for this
Yes.
narrative.
I like it. So really almost a political vision of, hey, there's these forces coming up. We have to have a strong conversation around what we're interested in so that we can have a counter conversation to the emergence of artificial intelligence. Thank you all so much. And I hope that you learned something new from and about your partners while doing this. What I'd like to do now is transition to an image. And what we're going to do is just spend a couple minutes just viewing the image in silence. And I invite the people in the back, if you can't see, just walk around the room. You don't have to feel fixed in your chair. You can get up, stand, walk around, whatever you want to do. So we're going to spend a couple minutes in silence, and then we're going to come back together, okay? What I'd like you to do now is find a partner, and it can be the same person you partnered up with just a minute ago, and talk about what you see here. Okay, spend a few minutes talking. What comes up for you? What's happening? What is this about? Explore the painting together. Okay, I'd love to hear from you all. So, what's going on in this picture? Go ahead and raise your hand and tell me what you think is going on, so I know who to look at. I heard someone say something. Yes, please. Okay, tell me more about that. What do you harvest? What do you see here?
It's lunchtime, so a few people are picking up things from baskets to eat.
Yeah. So you notice
A
the
few
baskets.
others, I should just only take one more, just one more.
Well, one more bite.
One more food.
Ah, okay, so the harvest itself.
Yeah.
So some people
Before
are.
they can come to lunch, they have to just one more.
Okay. So I liked what you did here. So you notice these people. Looks like they're eating something there, right? And you said that's lunch. The reason why you said it's lunch and not breakfast or dinner?
This looks like it's in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
not morning, not afternoon.
Mm-hmm. What about it makes it look like middle of the day?
No shadow.
Okay, interesting. All right. Sky looks pretty, what, is that hazy? Okay, so, yeah, you don't really see too many shadows here, right? That's an interesting observation. So, no long shadows, we're thinking maybe middle of the day, it could be lunch. And then you did something else, you created a story here, and you said, these folks, is that what you're pointing to, these folks here?
Yeah.
A little bit more work before they can join them. Okay, I like that.
Or
Thank
waiting
you.
for,
Yes,
or these guys are waiting for their wives to come. To bring the food.
these guys?
Waiting for their wives to come with the food.
Okay.
Because the others are arrived, you see the clothes are not work clothes.
Which are not work clothes, these?
Yeah, good women. So maybe she came with food.
And they are working actually, the men.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand what's going on. So you're saying these guys are working, and they're waiting for their wives to bring them food, and they're going to keep working until that happens. Okay, I like that. And what were you saying?
The same thing, someone's coming on the road.
Here? Yep.
And those who are already eating, their wives have different clothes, they're not work clothes.
Yeah.
So there were assumption that...
Okay, did anyone else notice that the clothing is a little different between the different groups of people in the painting? So these look a little different than what this man is wearing. How about these two? Look kind of similar, right? So it looks like there's some distinction here. What did people make of that? Other people who noticed that, what did you make of that? Those differences in clothing? Yes?
Those for women and those for men. I think the women are collecting what the men cutting down.
The women are collecting these.
I think the women are working as well as putting the food
Okay.
on the table.
So you mentioned these women are collecting? Is that right? So they're doing that, and they're also involved in putting food on the table, is that right? And where do you see them putting food on the table?
And there's one woman or one person picking something up from the basket.
Oh, here. Right. Okay. So picking at something up from the basket. Did you get a sense of what that is? Okay. Anyone else think it's cheese? Certainly could be something kind of big. Could be bread. Could be cheese. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Other observations. So we noticed different types of people, different clothing.
We discussed the church behind the tree.
Okay.
It's there, but it's central in a way, but still it's hidden away.
Interesting.
And also we noticed, I think, at least 2 other churches.
Ah.
And we thought about that, because that
Yeah.
might give you a feeling that other places, the same thing is going on, other people are harvesting as well,
Interesting.
like these are, because you can see the fields.
Yeah.
And we were a bit, we don't know really what to do out of this big square yellow thing, which is
This?
in the distance, yes.
Mhm.
I thought first it was a van or something like with dry.
It's a bus.
It's loads of straw or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's very big if you take in the distance.
Yes.
So it's very what to make
So,
out.
so tell me, you used the word church. What is it about that structure that makes you use that word, church?
Because
what
I
do you-
think I can make out a tower.
A what? A tower.
A tower,
Okay,
yes.
good.
It might be wrong, but
Yeah.
it interests me that the artist, since I think this is a rather old, I happen to know, I think roundabouts when it was painted.
Yeah.
It interests me that the church is central,
Yeah.
but hidden behind the tree.
Very
There's
good.
sort of
Yeah.
an ambivalence there.
So,
And we-
did other people see this as a church? Other people notice that? Was it the tower
Or a castle.
or a castle? Yeah. This is what's the difference between a representation of a representation, which is what this is, right? And the real thing. If you see the real painting, you can actually see a small cross up here. Okay, so that's further evidence that is what we're dealing with as a church here. Okay, and you said it's in the center, but it's a little bit hidden. Are there any meanings you're drawing from that?
Yes, I think because this painting is about work.
Mm-hmm.
Work and eat, working for your food and eating your food,
Yeah.
and working again. And the church at this time, I think, was very important. So it's a statement
Yeah.
that the church isn't as important in everyday life as we think.
Yeah.
It's the ordinary life that is important, is lifted forward, so to say.
Thank you so much. Yes.
I would like to protest because the church is situated on the highest place.
Yeah.
So it's still dominating the life of the people.
Yeah.
And we also see that it is, even when you don't know that the picture is, that the painting is painted by Brügge, you see that it shows a time long ago because people have clothes that are not modern, and then the wheat is very, very high.
Yeah.
So, because today it's very, very low.
Uh-huh.
And you see also that must be a very, very rich soil, because this wheat can only grow so very high.
Yeah.
So it can't be Sweden.
Yeah.
It's of course Netherlands with its rich soil.
Okay, so you mentioned several, I think, interesting observations. One was, yes, the church is behind the tree, but it occupies the highest point in the painting, so it conveys the importance in kind of overseeing the activities of the culture. You notice that the type of clothing seems unlike today, so it seems like something from yesteryear. And you notice even the height of the wheat and what that could suggest about the richness of the soil, and maybe even the location of where this is occurring in the world. Thank you very much. Yes. Purple.
I'm
Yep.
curious about this person at the lower right corner who's not wearing any trousers.
This person, or
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Or is it a skirt missing or something? Is
Mhm.
is that okay?
Yeah. It looks like these people are ignoring this person, so it might not be okay. I don't know. That's interesting, right? Someone in the back had their hand up over there, no? Okay. go up here. You haven't said anything yet.
It somehow represents a strong sense of community in a way. It's hard work,
Yep.
but not suffering hard work.
Mhm.
There's room for rest and for recreation
Yeah.
and for needs. And
Yeah.
the work is endless, but yeah.
Let's explore that a little bit. Community, hard work, endless. So where is it that you see hard work? How does that represent it here?
Well, obviously the people working and the amount of work that
Okay.
has been done and that is left, and
Okay.
that apparently they need to just rest.
Yeah. Good. I think those are important things. So one is seeing the type of activities that are taking place. So that's very physically laborious activity, right? Using the scythe to kind of cut this wheat down. So we can almost imagine stepping into that place and seeing what that's like to do that work. You notice this guy kind of passed out, maybe even as a consequence of working so hard, right? Did anyone else also think about how much has already been harvested compared to how much is still to go? Yeah? See a lot of nodding heads there. Did that put you in a certain kind of mood? Did it feel overwhelming to anybody? That there's so much to do, or did it feel okay? Yeah.
It feels okay though. The guy laying down obviously has a little stomach there, so he's not it's starvation.
Right.
It seems like a pretty well off rural scene.
Yeah.
Holland maybe, whatever.
Yeah. Excellent. So it doesn't. So one thing you mentioned is, okay, so it may be hard work, but these people look like they're benefiting from the situation. He looks well fed, and that evidence of his kind of belly and resting posture is kind of, it offsets the picture of hard work and that whole harvest that still has to be done. Very nice. Yes.
I don't know if they own their land or there's a big house there. If
Yeah.
there is an owner of all their
Yeah.
land and they are just working for somebody.
Good.
Because we have all these churches, there are 3 churches in a very small area.
Yeah.
Maybe they are priests and they are the owner of the land.
Mm-hmm.
So they just work for landlord.
Yeah. Did anyone else think about class in this and said, who's the worker, who's the landowner, who's the boss? Other people thought about that too. Yeah.
I think during this time, the clients, the church had a big domination, and the client wanted this. If it was a church or another client, they wanted the church to be inside picture, just
Yeah.
to show that they are a little
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
Christianity.
Yep.
In a way, that is an important thing.
Yeah, and so what I'm fascinated with is the kind of layers of conversation. Some are observations of what this person's postures looks like. He could be exhausted. Another is what it could mean about the overall economic state. He's well fed. It looks like it's a healthy environment. And then we talked about what the structure is probably a church because of the physical features. And now we're having kind of a meta conversation about the historical context of the actual painting, when it might have taken place, who might have been the patron for the painting, and the inspiration for putting certain features in there. So very layered conversation. Yes, please.
I agree with the rich soil, because they have tried to keep the trees in the middle of the field.
Ah.
Otherwise you should remove them.
Yeah, that is interesting, right? So you feel like this is kept here because there's so much.
It's enough anyway.
Yeah.
Otherwise you need to remove them.
I had never thought about that. That's a very interesting point. Yeah, I like that. Yes.
I think it's a kind of balance in the composition of the picture.
Yeah.
Between what's done and what's left.
Yeah.
People resting and people working.
Yeah. I like that. So really, there is that kind of relationship between work and rest, what's done, what isn't done yet. Absolutely. Yeah.
And now, when we started talking about the church, what struck me is that the painting is probably not a Sunday. They will all be in church.
Good. I like that. So we're even situating not only in kind of centuries, but on the day of the week. Yeah. Thank you for that observation. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Just in the corner here, something hiding in the, I think it's water.
Okay.
And it will give us that it's a warm day. It will be very warm. They hide the water in the shadow of the...
Interesting. I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And you see this somewhere else, right? Someone else is over here drinking out of the same type of vessel, right?
They put it just to be in the shadow.
Yeah.
Keep it a little cold.
I like that. So do you get a sense of temperature here? Does it feel cold? Does it feel hot? What does it feel like?
It's a warm.
It's a. Tell me more about that. Why do you say that?
July?
Yeah. Well, why do you say it's a little July or whatever? Why does it
Well,
feel?
I think because the harvest time and it would be the right time to get the weeds away.
Yeah. Okay. So you have some knowledge of how these crops kind of evolve over the course of the year, and you're thinking it's going to be a summer harvest. Very nice. Did anyone look at these areas in the midground? What do you think was going on there? It's very hard to see. I'm going to show you some slides here that gives you a little more of a close-up of these folks. So it does look like, what do you think? This may be cheese. That may be bread, so it's got a nice little meal there. Yeah, it's interesting, the legs on this person. What do you think they're eating there? What does that look like to you?
Porridge.
Looks like that, right? Using a spoon. There's a couple little things in there, little berries or something. And this guy. So what are your hypotheses? A, he's just exhausted and taking a nap. Lazy, okay, interesting.
Drunk.
Or he could be drunk, yeah. We don't really know what's in here. This person may be laying right next to that guy in about a half an hour, right? Let me show you this. A little close up here with these workers. And you see these folks carrying the wheat the other direction. Birds here. This was so wonderful about these paintings is that you spend time looking at them in real life and you see little tiny details that you wouldn't have noticed initially. Do you notice this back there? The folks in the back definitely couldn't see it, but there's a midground here. Let's take a look at what's going on there. Yeah, they're playing some sport. And there's some hypotheses of what that medieval sport was, but they're definitely active. And this person's running here, right? And take a look at this area. Yeah. What do you make of that?
Warm day.
Yes, that's a nice observation. Again, going with the idea of this is a summer, hot day. Anything else you notice? Clothing? No clothing? So there's several people taking off their clothing. What about the person that is clothed? Creepy. To me, this looks like a little hood. You want to see that? Could it be?
It's a stone.
It's a monk.
Could be a monk. Right?
Or Etherbath.
Yeah. Okay, so all kinds of little details there, isn't there? So beautiful, symbiosis. And they want to make anything of this sea in there? How does that affect the picture? Yeah.
And then in prosperity, because they show that they have ships, and they show also maybe that they have been in Asia and China because of the hats that on people there.
Oh, interesting here, huh?
Yeah, the hats
That's
and
fascinating.
the ships.
Yeah, very interesting. So this painting really connects the local to the regional to the globe. I mean, this is really, it's really a connection of all these things, a connection between labor and rest, connection between labor and food that we're eating, right? And it's this cyclical pattern that keeps the entire community working. Any other final thoughts here on this? So I think several people said Bruegel. This is Peter Bruegel, 1565, and this painting is called The Harvesters. So you had the correct word from the very beginning. And if you want to see this painting in real life, it's at the Metropolitan Museum in New York City. So I invite you to go there and check it out and just spend time, looking at all the details.
How big is this painting?
Yeah, it's about this. It's larger than my span of my arms. A little bit larger. Yeah.
There's a wonderful exhibition of his paintings in Vienna just now.
Is that right? Okay.
Past Vienna.
Okay, so if you're passing through Vienna, check out a collection of Bruegel's paintings. The other site that's really worth checking out is Google has an art site. I forget the actual URL, but they've gone throughout the world and basically taken photos, very detailed photos of artworks, and you can zoom in on them really closely, even the kind of detail that the actual museum won't show. So it's a wonderful place if you want to do this kind of work with students or trainees or your teams. It's a nice place to get images and zoom in on things. So what I'm going to do now is ask you all to write in the shadow of our conversation. Okay, so if you have your notebook, please take that out, and we'll write for 5 minutes. Okay, so it'll be pretty quick writing. And if you don't have a pen or notebook, just raise your hand and your neighbor. I'm going to give you the prompt in just a second. Okay. I think most people have them out already. So let me give you the prompt. Okay, so whenever the instructions we give when we ask people to write and is saying this is not a composition class. Don't be stressed about the quality of your writing. Okay, no one's giving you a grade. When you put the pen on the paper, just if you feel stuck, just start writing and see where the pen will take you. We really think about writing as an act of discovery. So wherever you end up writing is just fine. Okay, so no stress. We will write with the knowledge that we're going to share this with our partner. Okay, so after you write this, I'll have you and your partners again to read what you've written to each other, and then I'll invite a couple of you to read out to the whole group. Okay, sound all right? Okay, excellent.
What language are we supposed to write in?
You can write in whatever language you feel comfortable in.
I have to know it.
Right? It does not have to be English. It can be whatever you want to express yourself in. Okay? All right, so here's the prompt. We'll give you 5 minutes. Write about the seeds that you are planting. Write about the seeds that you are planting. Take this in any direction you want. You can interpret this in any way you want. Start wrapping up that final thought. No perfect place to stop. Just find a place that just feels natural. Alright, great. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is share your writing with one another. And when you do share, a couple of things that to keep in mind is consider the person that is reading, right? So first thing is make sure to read from your text. Don't talk about what you wrote, but actually read what you wrote. Okay, and the reason for that is we want to examine what you've written as a text itself. What you've just written as a text, you're sharing that text with your partner. The partner's job is just to listen carefully, in the same way that you would listen to a poem carefully. Listen to what's said, how it's said, what words are used, what surprised you, what was the narrative arc, what were the metaphors that are being used, what was the form? Is it a poem? Is it prose? Is it a doctrine? What does it sound like, right? So think about just how the poem or how the writing is working. And after the piece has been written to you, just spend a few minutes, a few moments reflecting back what you heard. Does that sound okay? All right. So go for it. Okay, everyone. Let's come back together as a group. Love to hear from a couple of folks who would like to read to the rest of us. Okay, this is good. You can nominate your partner. You can.
Well, I wrote in English, as a matter of fact. It might not be right, but in September, I collected the seeds from my blue African lily as soon as they had turned ripe and brown. I planted them at once because I needed a project to believe in and something to hope for. And if you wait until spring, they might not start growing, I have read. Sometimes it's easy to feel that practical things to do also have a metaphorical meaning.
Very nice. Thank you for reading that. So what did you all hear in this writing? What words stuck out for you?
Hope.
Hope. Yeah.
Believe.
Belief, yeah, those were right there in the first half of the piece.
I thought about blue African lily. I don't know anything about it, but it seems like an important and beautiful flower, but brittle, like I don't know, not so robust.
Yeah.
Maybe
Not in our
fragile
climate.
with it.
Not in our climate. Yes.
Very interesting. So you had this notion of something that's fragile, that needs to be cared for. Almost like the hope and belief needs to be nurtured, this delicate thing that needs to be nurtured until the next season. Very nice. What else did you hear? Project, yeah. Tell me more. What kind of tone did that give the piece?
Like someone is telling a kung fu.
Yeah.
Pragmatist.
Yes. Pragmatic. I like that. I agree. Did anyone else kind of feel this is a pragmatic story? But it's balanced with this beautiful metaphor, this flower.
Sensitivity and life.
Yeah. It's amazing to think about this flower as being this powerful, pragmatic tool for life. You know, that balance is very, very, very nice. How about the structure of the piece? Did you notice anything about the actual structure of how it goes, the narrative arc or the balance of the piece itself? There's a kind of dichotomy in the piece also. The first half of this piece describes how the flower has this, the role of the flower. The second half kind of explicates the need to have something to be practical about. Am I right about that? Does it kind of shift the second half?
Yes.
Kind of explains the first half in a way.
Yes.
It's very interesting. Other thoughts?
It was a nice ending of the story.
Yeah. What did you notice about the
It
ending?
sums it all up.
Yeah. There's a real nice kind of form to the whole piece. It ends. It has a nice ending. Thank you very much for reading.
Thank you.
Appreciate
You
that.
made it better than I thought.
All right. All right. Can we have one more person read? And don't be afraid. This is not about better or worse. Whatever came up for you, it's important and interesting. And when we do this work in groups, it's very important to maintain that neutrality about the work, because what you want to do is create a space that is safe for whatever you've written to be expressed and have value. Right? If you're doing it in a healthcare team, someone might be there with an MD, PhD, and someone who there with an associate's degree, maybe just finished high school. You want both of what they've written to have value, significance, and meaning for the whole narrative. So we're not going to be thinking about this as better or worse, just curiosity is the zone that we're in. About one more person. Yes?
I didn't manage to finish, but I improvised a little. Yeah. I'm terribly scared about what seeds I am planting. What would I become in time? I use almost the same water like they used. I added just a little bit of love, hugs, and preoccupation. I feel just that I'm not doing enough. If I just knew somehow, if I just could see a picture from the future in 20 years' time. But then I would ask myself, how did they become like they did? Oh well, I'm just another parent.
I'm just another parent. Oh, wow. And you said it's not finished?
Perhaps read it once again and turn around.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit nervous.
Thank you.
I don't want one.
Yeah, thank you.
So it was like this. I'm terribly scared about what seeds I'm planting. What will they become in time? I use almost the same water like they've used. I added a little bit of more of love, hugs, and preoccupation. I feel just that I'm not doing enough. If I just knew somehow, if I just could see the picture within 20 years' time. But then I would ask myself, how did they become like they did? Oh well, I'm just another parent.
That last sentence is important. Thank you. All right. What did you all hear in this piece?
I was very moved.
You were moved.
Yes.
What was it about it that was moving for you?
I don't know. Okay. I think something happened inside.
Yeah. Did that feel? Anybody else feel that something happened?
It was sincere and it was real and it was honest.
Yes. Okay. There's a honesty to it, openness to it. Absolutely.
That's impressive.
What was it that felt open and honest? What was how it was written or what was said?
The tone, the language, body language.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
I think the ambition in doing something better than before, and the real effort putting into doing something better for the children.
Yeah.
And then not having the actual results until the future.
Yeah.
So you don't really know what you're actually doing. And, yeah.
The expression of self-doubt.
Yeah, good, thank you. Uncertainty, right? Again, like what's over that horizon on that picture? We don't know.
I was also moved, I think, because the mention of the day first, you couldn't know really what it was.
Yeah.
And then you realized that this is a way of telling your place in the chain of generations.
Yes.
So I interpreted as the parents, and that's what we're all struggling with, I think.
Yeah.
To do better. And we probably surely can do it.
Very interesting. The water's almost the same, except I put more love and attention into it. Yeah, you had a comment?
Yeah, I really like the metaphor of seeds.
Yeah.
Instead of children, because it's the same concern when you plant a seed. Maybe with a seed, you know what it will become because you plant certain kind of seeds, but with children you actually don't know. And the extra concern it is, and the extra long time you have to wait before you
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to thank you all for trusting each other and trusting this process and being open and trusting with this whole group and sharing with us. And even standing up and speaking, that's an act of courage and a risk taking, so we appreciate that. If you hadn't had a chance to do it, just turn to your partner and thank them for sharing their story with you. So let's come back as a group. What I'd like to conclude with is just a couple thoughts about what we just did, okay? So with using visual art, there's just like a poem or a novel, there's a zillion ways to teach this stuff. What we try to focus on is, when we use visual art, is try to focus on the immediate experience of the group. We're less interested in someone saying, oh, that's a Picasso. That's less of our interest. Our interest is, what is the direct experience of the person with that painting? What are they feeling? What are they, not what they know about the painter, but what do they see? What's in front of you? What do you notice? And when we think about observation, there's different levels we're interested in. There's the level of kind of the highest level of kind of metaphor, meaning. What is this painting about? This is a statement about class. This is a statement about blankety blank. And then there's layers beneath that that are about the observation. Sometimes we have an interpretation, but we're not even aware of how we came to that interpretation. So part of the process is to get us down to the actual observation. All of those levels are important, but oftentimes, if you work with students, let's say you show them an abstract art that is not figurative, a lot of them will look at it and they say, I hate it. But I want to know why. What's going on there? What emotions are coming up for you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? So that's one of the methods that I've used with you is you say, oh, it looks like a church. That's a church. Well, tell me what about that structure makes you say it's a church? It's summer. Why does it look like summer? Tell me the details. So what this does is allows us to have a process of metacognition, a thinking about our thinking, and it also sharpens our skills of observation. To not just, make a quick judgment of what you're seeing, but to say, oh, this is what I'm seeing, and this is why. Okay? So the other thing that I wanted to convey to you is in terms of using any kind of creative work, like a poem or a short story or a clip of a film or a painting, we use those in kind of typical ways. One is we explore them together just like we did. And what we try to do in the exploration is allow all viewpoints. There's no right answers for these things. What we're interested in is if you have an observation, would like to know why. Why do you think that? Why do you feel that? As long as we can have an exploration of what you're actually observing, it's all okay. Okay, so there's no right answers for this. And after we've discussed the painting or the poem or whatever, we oftentimes, what we say, write in the shadow of the creative work. And the purpose of that, and we do that with a prompt. Okay, and the purpose of that is ultimately what we have found over the years is that sometimes conversations are possible when mediated through art. And I use that word art very broadly. It could be a film, it could be a poem, it could be a painting. Sometimes we have access to our emotions and experience when mediated through art that are very powerful and sometimes not possible when we don't engage with that work of creative work. And the way we do that is by using a prompt. And the prompt, and I always think of a prompt as like a bridge that connects the world of metaphor to one's own world. And so with a prompt, we try to use some concept, language, metaphor that is found in the painting or found in the poem, but is ambiguous enough that allows people to interpret it in the way they want, but has them right in the direction of their own lives. The other thing that we do is we don't give a lot of time for writing. So I didn't give you half an hour. I didn't say turn something in tomorrow. I said we have 5 minutes, and you can do this in 3 minutes. You can do it in 4 minutes. And what that does is it forces us to, it doesn't allow us to plan. Whatever's on our mind, wherever we go with it, and you try to create a very safe environment saying there's no, anything that you write is useful and can be valuable for us. And we try to create a space where people are reading what they've written to each other. And what often happens is that people start to take risks with each other. Because when you write expressively, you may end up writing about yourself, your family, your work, something that's troubling you. And we always preface by saying, write with the knowledge that you're going to share with someone. So what we say is that allows the participants to self-titrate. If they feel like they want to share something very deep, they can do it. It's their choice because they know they're going to share it. Or if they say, no, I'm only going to share this much, that's okay too. What happens over time is that as trust develops, people will end up, disclosing and sharing things that are meaningful to them. Okay? And what we find is that when you take an act of risk like you both did by speaking to the whole group, there's a kind of thickness to the relationship that didn't exist the moment before you did that. So we all feel more connected because of the risks that you took. And that's what we find in this work with students or residents or with teams. Okay? So any final thoughts about the experience this afternoon? Okay, thank you all so much.